Hello and welcome in my tutorial of Maya 2022. So in this tutorial we're gonna start with basic overview of the software. So what is Maya? Maya is one of the most used software in the industry. Is used mainly in 3D and VFX studios. You're gonna see it in many studios because it's like a standard for animation and modelization and rigging as well. So that's why it's one of the main tool used in the industry for 3D and VFX. So first of all, you're gonna open the file here, and this is something very generic in all the softwares. You're gonna have the scenes. You can save the scene. So a scene is the compilation of the file you saving or opening. So this is where you can store all your datas. So there is multiple save scenes. You can see there is the save scene here, and you can see here on the files of type there is the binary and the ASCII. So this is very basic. The binary is just a crypto encrypted file of Maya, and ASCII is a text file where you can see inside, and you can also edit the text file when you open it. So we want for now to save in binary to avoid editing the scenes. So this is kind of the first stuff you want to know, how to save a scene. So here on the left you can see all the folders where you can save, and basically if you here on file and you go to set project, you're gonna set the project in a place where you're gonna store your space. So basically you're in your data saver and you want to say this is my Maya scene for the tutorial. So let's say tutorial Maya scene, and here we can set the project. You're gonna create a workspace. So create a workspace, it means you're gonna create a series of folders, and on those folders you're gonna save all your work. So this is it. Now it's set. So when you're gonna press the save scene button, you're gonna appear straight in your scene where you was setting. So here was not the case. Let's see if I set again. Set. Here I go into Maya scene tutorial. Here we see the workspace we set. And when we save, you see we are on the D, on the scene Maya tutorial, and you can save as example scene. So this is very basic, but you need to know how to save and import stuff. So here import. So basically imagine you have an object or a scene from a friend or from another studio or from another source. You want to be sure you have the import button here, and you can import the scene from another software, and same for the export. If you want to export something, imagine we have a sphere here, we want a sphere here, we export the selection as a sphere. Now we have a new scene, so I'm pressing Ctrl N for the new scene. I don't save, I import the scene here on this, and I can import the sphere, you see. So this is the way to change the data. So import, export, saving, very basic stuff. We have some send to Unity, send to Unreal, but this is for future tutorials. And on the project windows here you can see all the stuff saved. So if you save some clips, some sound, some data, if you fix some auto saving. So let's set up the auto saving. Can you see something can be very useful at the beginning if your machine is crashing or stuff like this. So you can go into here, you go to where is the save auto saving? Okay, well, I don't remember with the auto saving, so that's what I want you to be used to do, is go in Google and be like auto saving Maya, and you can see on Knowledge Autodesk. This is where you're gonna find all the stuff, and you can see it's on Windows, setting preferences. So we go in Windows, setting preferences, and in saving must be file project. Here autosave you can enable every 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. So don't hesitate to type in Google when you have a question, because I'm not gonna cover every single button, and as you can see you have the response very fast. Documentation is key for progressing. So here you can redo, undo, so Ctrl Z, Ctrl, you can see all the redo, undo, cut, copy, paste, same as usual software. So this is all the editing stuff. You can group and ungroup. So let's say we are here and we want to create a sphere. So we create here in the polygon primitive a sphere. So we have a sphere here, we can zoom with the mouse, and we're gonna save on the side a cube. If you press W, you're gonna have the translation here, and here on the side you can see we are in selection mode, here we are in transform mode, and here we are in rotation mode. So transform mode, if you see the arrow, we are in 3 dimensions, so Y, X, X and zeta here, and we can go from the different angle depending on the stuff. If you press E, you go in rotation mode like this, and you can change the stuff depending on the axis. So yeah, this is something you need to practice, go used to, and you're gonna understand more this kind of stuff. If you have any question, you can hit me up and we can have a display together and moving the interface together to understand what's happening. But the very basic movement here. So when I'm rotating in the window here, I'm pressing Alt and left click, and I can rotate here, and Alt and right click, I can zoom and dezoom. I can do it as well with the mouse, depend of your setup, but this is something you're gonna do a lot to move in the 3D space. So this is basically all you need to do at the beginning. So I was looking at the ungroup and the group button. So basically you select both objects like this, so you have this selection here, both objects, and you press Ctrl G, and now you can see you create here a group. So what is here is the outliner. The outliner you can see here on Windows outliner. If this is closed, or if it's for some reason is not here, you can always go here and press outliner. The outliner is basically the inventory of all the objects in Maya. So you're gonna have the cube, the sphere, but also everything you need to cover all your scene. Here you can also show some specific stuff. Sometimes some stuff are hidden, but you want to show all and see all your scene here. So basically when you're in Maya, you go here, you group stuff, you can say this is the group of objects. So you double click on the outliner and you can change the name. This sphere can be, let's say, a planet, and this cube can be like a satellite. And you can name stuff here. You can finish with modelization for a model, for example, or if it's a character, you know, so you precise, you work here so people understand what is happening on your scene, and when you reopen your scene you can have all your information on the name. So basically when you're here, you have as well the attribute editor on the right side and the channel box. So attribute editor, as you see, is all happening on your object. So this is a polysphere with a certain amount of radius, with a certain amount of subdivision, and 8 in axis, and this is the shader, so the material attribute. Same for the cube. If you go in cube, now you have polycube with like a width, a height, a depth, so you can play with that. You can also move the faces if you select the faces. So this is something we're gonna cover, like we can cover now. So we go right click on the object. So if you right click on the vacuum, you just have complete tool or select all. But if you right click on the object, you have object mode. So you can select the object. You can go on faces and select the faces, and you can as well press W to move the face. Or you can go in vertex mode. So you see these pink, purple dots here. That means you can move the dot now and walk in vertex mode like this. Or you can move the edge. So the edge is the connection of two vertex here, and you can move the edge like this. So this is basically the way all object is done per vertex, connected into edges, and the edge, multiple edges do a face. So to do a face, you need at least 3 vertex. So basically, if I'm here, and I'm gonna show you later, but if I'm cutting, let's say I'm putting, where is the cut? Must be the other one. Ah yeah, like this. Edge loop. So you're here, and what's happening? You're here, and you create the edge loop like this. You see, you create a new vertex, and it's gonna be connected to like an edge here, another edge here, and create 2 faces. So this is basic geometry of the model. So this is something you need to understand in 3D. You can take a look at other introduction videos of Maya if you want to cover this more deeply, but this is how a mesh is organized. So basically, this is the way to proceed in Maya. So you go from object to object. Here you can see everything I did is polysplit, is like the split I just did before, is coming in the attribute editor. So attribute editor gonna be the compilation of every action you did on your model. So you can see attribute editor here, and here if I do, let's say, a face delete, like I did at this face. So you see there is a hole here because I delete the face. You can see here I have a delete component, and if I remove this delete component, it's gonna reassign the face. So all this is like a hierarchy of action, and here a hierarchy of object. So let's go into some. So let's continue just the interface quickly, and we're gonna jump into a proper modelization tutorial. So this is the nub geometry. So nubs is another way of doing geos based on curve. So if you see this one and this one, they are very different because it's surface point. When you right click, you're gonna see all the type of stuff is control vertex. So it's all based on curve geometry. So we don't really model using this. I prefer modeling this way, but this is another one you can maybe have a look and can be useful for certain type of situation. But I advise you to create polygon primitive and not nubs primitive, and not volume primitive as well. So from there you're gonna have face to export, extrude, and move with. So this is for the creation type. So you can also create lights. So it depends of your render on your render motor, but you have like lights to light your scene, and point light, spotlight, area light, and we're gonna cover the lighting in another tutorial for sure. But this is where you can create the default lighting on your Maya scene. Cameras. So camera is very important here. Create a camera. So you see when I create an object, it goes on the center of the world, but there is this sphere. So basically when I create a camera here, it goes on the middle. You can do Shift D to duplicate your object if you want to duplicate this cube, for example. So you have like multiple, and you can do Control D to duplicate on the same spot. So here I have my camera here. It's the camera 2. So you see every time we duplicate or use another or we create another object or another light or another camera, is gonna appear here on the outliner. Same with all these attributes here, and you can from here play with the camera. If you want to go inside your camera, you have here the panel with the perspective, and here we can have perspective of the camera 1. So camera 1 here, and we are looking inside the camera. So now we are basically in the camera. So if I back, so I press space on the middle. So space is a good way to access all what you see on the top, but also every shortcut in the software. So that's pretty useful, and you can use this to win some time if you want to learn how to go quicker into some stuff here. So here I press space, Maya, and I go in perspective view, and if you see, I let the camera, because I was inside the camera when I go in inside panel camera 1 perspective. You see, this is my perspective, and basically you don't see, but the perspective is also a camera. It's just another setup, but it's not a proper camera you create, it's a default camera. So here, if you press here, you select the camera you're selectioning. So if I'm selecting the cube and I'm pressing here, I come back to the selection of the camera I'm inside of. If I go on perspective and I press this, I'm in the perspective camera, and you can see those 4 cameras on gray. You can't select them, you can't really do more with them because they are the default camera, but they are cameras you're using every time you're in Maya. And when you press space one time, you go into a multiple mode when you have the top camera, the front camera, and the right camera on the already created, and you can jump from one to another. Pretty useful. And you can press space one time to go into a specific camera. So I advise you to stay in the perspective, and we're gonna learn from this camera. Okay, so cameras are very important. We're gonna teach a proper set of videos about camera and rendering, how to set up a camera, the parameters, the focal, scale, or the feedback, like all this kind of stuff. Very important to know when you do 3D render, because you're basically using 3D virtual camera to render your image. So that's one of the way of creation. So this is to cover all the creation you can do here. So you can create as well Locator. It's going to be useful for certain situation, but Locator is basically an object placed on, well, when you create it on the center of the universe, but this is basically something with nothing inside. So it's just like a dot in the space, and you can use it for many stuff. You can use it, for example, to, if you have these 2 objects and you want to group them on the Locator, so you can group those 2 objects, for example, but the Locator, so if you are in the outliner and you middle click from an object to another, you're gonna maybe do a parent. So this one is the parent of those 2. So when you move this, now you're moving also the cube inside. And if I put those 3 cubes inside the Locator like this with the middle click, now the Locator have access to all the other stuff in the scene. So pretty useful. This is some tool you can use for parenting, for managing multiple objects together, for transformation. So you have multiple purpose in rigging as well. And Locator are very like a null object on the space, and you can use it for many purposes. So this is on the creation stuff as well. You can select. So let's go into some selection. Let's clean the scene a bit just to have a fresh scene so you don't get confused. I press Ctrl N. He asks me if I want to save. I say no, thank you. And I create just a little cube here. Just scale it up. So you can see on the channel box, I have the scale here. Channel box is like the attribute editor, but for the object. And you can see here all the inputs, the shape, and here, and you can see I put to 9. So I will put to 1 is the basic scale, and 9 is the bigger scale. I was just to see better the cube. So let's say now I want to select, so I'm gonna create 2 cubes, and I'm on the selection phase, and I want to like, I'm here and I want to select the inverse. So you see it's selecting all the other objects. Inverse, you can deselect everything, you can select everything as well. How do we select everything? All. So this is, you have the shortcut with Control Shift A, Control Shift E, so Control Shift A, you have everything, Control Shift E, you deselect everything, pretty useful selection, so after you can move, rotate, and here for stuff. So this is the tree here, you are here, and you can see the shortcut. If you let the mouse, you have a little explanation with the shortcut, so that's pretty handy. W for the move tool, E for the rotate tool, and scale air tool. So this is for the selection. You can select as well specific other stuff. You can create quick selection set, but this is for later. And we're gonna move to the modifier. So the modifier is basically all the transform tool we're using now. So they are the shortcuts. So the move tool, the rotate tool, they are considered as modifier because you modify the geometry. The pivot point. So in your cube, this dot here on the middle is called the pivot point. This pivot point is basically where the center of your object is, the center of gravity. So basically I'm rotating from the center of this cube. If I move the pivot point, so pivot point, to move it, you press D, and now you see is like a yellow dot here. So when you move it, you're moving the pivot point. So now when I'm rotating around this dot. You see the center of this object is here now. Same for the transformation, but we don't really care. We fit it more here or even on the scaling. So this is the pivot point here. So here it's very good because you can center the pivot, so you're sure it's going back to the middle of your object. So when you rotate or play with your object, you're sure you're not doing weird stuff or specific stuff you maybe need later on. So this is for the modifier pivot point. Have a look at the pivot point, very important to understand. And that's it. So we're gonna don't cover more in those 5. So this is really like what you need to know at the beginning. So let's review quickly this video. We are here on a new scene, like I do, Control N. On the scene we can create some specific object like a sphere, like a camera, like a light, and we can edit what we did if we move it here using W to translate and Alt left click to move around your window, right click to zoom and unzoom. You can see here ambient lighting, cameras, sphere, and everything is here set up ready in your video, in your scene. So basically this is what you need to do to just move into Maya, and on this next video we're gonna take a look at the modeling. So this is a really quick checking. You can see here you have access to the poly model and all the stuff we're gonna see later on, but you can actually access to all the basic polygons here if you want a torus, if you want a simple plane, or maybe this like this. So many type of situation, you need different type of polygons, but this is good to know. You can access in poly modeling, like here in the polygon here you have exactly the same. So this is all for the video. You can import, export, like I told, in other scenes, and you can edit, Control Z, Control Paste, copy, pasting, and stuff like this in this one. So that's it for this one. Is a very short introduction for the first openers of Maya. Please let the display like this when you enter to make sure you have the default display. You can take here and see like all the display you have. Here you have the stuff here, the symmetry, the cube, the camera names, display log, because if you change display like here, if you see, you have another type of display, more like left to right, the 4 and the basic one. So here we want to have the outliner on the left and the attribute editor on the right, and when you're more comfortable on the software, we're gonna change this. Okay, so here you can see everything you did on the cube, where is it, the naming, and access to the video and the vision. So that's it for this video. So on the next one we're gonna take a look at the modelization, see how the modelization work in Maya, how to do a little object, use the tools to do this object, so you can understand the process of modeling in Maya. So if you have some questions, don't hesitate, and see you in the next video.